Do deer have personalities? Are they smart enough to outwit us in the woods? I believe they do. And in this video, I'm going to tell you the two experiences that led me to believe that Larry Benoit was absolutely right. They have personalities, and they're smarter than we are. Stay tuned. In Larry Benoit's book, How to Bag the Biggest Buck of Your Life, he talks about how smart the deer are and how they have their own personalities and how they'll do different things to try to elude you in the woods. When I first read his book, I really didn't believe that. I really didn't see deer as very smart. I kind of thought if I had fresh snow on the ground, I could just walk up and shoot it. Of course, I'm a teenager now. I'm 17, 18 years old. This is my first time really in the woods hunting, so I really didn't have any experience, but I learned real fast that that's not actually the case. So I had two examples that happened to me of why I started to really believe that if you wanted to outsmart these bucks, you really needed to be on your game. So I'm going to tell you those experiences right now. If we're sitting there at deer camp and we're just, talking stories and you get to, feed off other people's experiences, well, that's what I'm going to do now. I'll tell you some experiences I had. The first one is, I was probably 18, 19, 24. Actually, I'm not really sure. It was a long time ago. But I knew where there was a scrape. I found it earlier in the season, and now I had fresh snow on the ground. And I was going to go sit and watch this scrape. And the scrape's down low, and I had to spot up high where I could sit overlooking that scrape and the whole area. So I started walking up to my spot. When I got there, I could look down, and everything was covered in white except for that scrape. It was already cleaned out. So I walked down there. Sure enough, there's no snow on it at all, and there was fresh tracks walking away. It was right at daylight, so I assumed that buck was right in front of me. I started following him a little ways, and there's a logging road. It was logged maybe 10, 15 years prior, but the roads were still pretty visible. And there was a whole bunch of tracks going down this logging road, but this buck, he stayed parallel off that logging road for maybe 200 yards, and then he hopped right on the road. And in Larry's book, he talks about the bucks will hop into other deer tracks to try to throw you off their track. And I thought, well, that makes total sense. It must be what he's doing. So I'm following him, all these tracks down this logging road, and it starts to go down this hill. And at the bottom of the hill, I know there's a header there it's pretty cleared out still. There's a lot of tops that got left, a lot of brush that got left. So I kind of thought, okay, this deer's probably going to watch his back track. He's probably right up ahead of me, sitting in one of those stumps, waiting to bolt up out of there when he sees me. As I get to the top of the hill, there was a kind of a down tree across the trail or across the logging road, so I leaned right up against that tree and had my gun up there, and I was just picking apart every little branch, everything, looking for an antler, looking for anything. And I could almost feel like that deer was watching me. I knew that buck was right there. I sat there for a good 10 minutes. I didn't see anything. I continued walking down the trail. And as I got down over the hill, the tracks just disappeared. Now, we're on fresh snow. It's still snowing out. How did these tracks just disappear? All the does went a different direction. He went down the hill. I only had his one single track. Where the hell did this deer go? I started doing the circles around the track, and I find off the logging road into the woods, I don't know how far, 8 feet maybe, I found a spot where he literally leaped off the logging road and landed, and he kind of came to a little skid, and then he headed the complete opposite direction, only 15, 20 feet off the logging road itself. And he came to, I don't remember if they were evergreen trees or if it was just a bunch of brush, but he kind of went behind this area, and he stood there for a long time. And I could tell he was there for a while because he did a step and a step and a step and a step, like a little nervous, jittery kind of thing. And then he bolted out of there and went 100 miles an hour straight up the mountain. That spot where that deer was standing was less than 40 yards from where I was leaning against that tree looking there. When I felt like that deer was staring at me, I was right. He was. He just wasn't down over the hill. He was right there behind me, staring at me. If I just turned around, I probably would have been able to get a shot at him. I was focused down below. I thought about that a very, very long time. I still think about that. Like, did that deer do that on purpose, or was that just pure coincidence? When I got down over the hill where I couldn't see behind me, he bolted up out of that area and was gone. He was halfway in the other county before I even knew he wasn't straight anymore. Kind of just kept that in the back of my mind. I didn't really know if I wanted to believe it. The second experience I had, and this is the one where I just couldn't deny it, because the same thing happened again. I was following this buck. I kept getting close to him. I saw his tail. I saw his rack once. I couldn't get a shot. And he ended up bringing me down to a pond. He walked along the pond, didn't go right down to the water, but he walked along the shoreline for quite a little ways. Then he walked up in the woods and went down over the hill. And I was like, why would he do that? Why would he come out into the open and then walk back into the woods? He didn't even get a drink. He ended up walking around the whole pond in the woods and then came back down the hill and stood in the marsh right there. What that buck did, he brought me back. He brought me out into the open. When I was back in the woods that way where I couldn't even see the pond anymore, he was hightailing at 100 miles an hour in the opposite direction. That's why I think deer are smart enough to outwit us. They know their area. They didn't get to be big bucks by accident. If you don't believe that a deer has a personality and the deer is that smart, you need to start hunting like they do. Whether you want to believe it or not, hunt like they do, because you will have better success. Because I assure you, Larry Benoit was right. Deer have personality. I always believe that a deer is going to watch its back track. If I'm tracking a buck and I know it's getting ready to bed down, he's been feeding heavy, he's starting to look for a spot to bed, I'm convinced that he's watching me from somewhere. He's going to be looking at me, whether it's straight ahead or off to the side. Most of the times I feel like if I catch up with a buck, he's already done his curve and he's sitting over here, and he's watching his back track while we're looking straight ahead. So you gotta look all the way around. Another thing that I don't see a lot of other hunters do, which surprises me, if you're in a real thick area or in a swampy area, and those deer are bedded down, they're not standing up, they're down. They're down below the conifers, they're down below the branches. You got to get down low. And if you get down low below all those tree lines, it'll open up a whole new world. If you're standing up and you're looking, all you see is green. But if you get down there, then you start seeing the trees themselves. They're all vertical, and you got to look for that horizontal. If you find that horizontal line, there's your buck line right there. But you got to get down and you got to look low. When I'm tracking a buck through heavy vegetation and he leads me into an open area, if all of a sudden up ahead of me there's a clearing, there's a pond, there's a header, anything open, I'm always thinking that buck's going to watch his back track. He's just trying to get me out into the open. I always think about that scene in the movie Heat, you know, the one of Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, where Al Pacino and all the cops are all in the shipyard and they're like, what are we looking at? What are we looking at? And Al Pacino realizes it's because the bad guys are all looking at them. That's what I think about when I'm in the woods and I see an open area. That buck is the bad guy and he's up there looking for me, drawing me out into the open so he can see what's following him. If you got an idea for a video you'd like to see, let me know. I'll try to see if I can get it done. If you've got any questions, keep them coming. I love seeing them. And thanks for watching my videos. Don't forget to subscribe and good luck out there.